Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Liz Quirantes.
And I'm Jim Grimes. Tonight, you watch the Florida gubernatorial debate right here on CBS 12 News.
And I'm back in the studio from the Sunrise Theater in Fort Pierce after asking your questions to the candidates.
Yeah, it was clear straight out of the gate that tonight's debate was going to be full of disagreements and starkly different ideas from the candidates about where Florida should be headed in the future.
We have live team coverage on tonight's debate, from local reaction to tonight's most heated moments.
The tone was set from early on. Among the big issues, the homeowner insurance crisis.
Our Mike Magnoli joins us live from the theater and takes us back to that opening act. Mike?
Hey there, Liz. Well, you were here, a couple of minutes in, and the gloves came off. These candidates blaming each other for where we find ourselves.
Property insurance. Property insurance under you has doubled in the state of Florida. Doubled, Ron. That's not good for the people of this state.
His plan would end up capsizing the state of Florida if we had a real storm.
Governor DeSantis and Charlie Crist using their 1-minute answers to your questions to go on offense and attack each other, and rebuttals often becoming defense. And that pattern continued into talk of Hurricane Ian.
What needs to be addressed is how we treat a storm before it makes landfall. And unfortunately, Governor DeSantis failed on this.
And Charlie Crist is sitting there. You know what he was doing during this? He was hiding out in Puerto Rico. He wasn't helping his community here. And then when he got back, what did he do? His campaign was soliciting campaign contributions from storm victims.
The CBS 12 News gubernatorial debate was initially planned for October 12th. It was postponed so the governor and Crist could concentrate on recovery efforts in Southwest Florida.
You know, whether it comes to COVID or comes to the hurricane, Ron ignored science. He doesn't think that they know what's right to apply to.
Here are the candidates on affordable housing and growth in Florida.
We have a housing crisis in our state. Good luck buying a home. Good luck renting an apartment. And it's because Governor DeSantis has taken his eye off the ball. He's focused on running for president in 2024, and as a result, we have lost things in our state budget, specifically a housing trust fund that has hundreds of millions of dollars that he, along with the legislature, have cut.
You know, Charlie Crist has voted with Joe Biden 100% of the time to give us these inflationary policies and to drive up the cost of everything that we're doing.
Okay, if you were watching, you know that towards the end of the hour, last question of the night, there was a subject that both candidates agreed on. And when I talk to you next time, Liz and Jim will go over that. Back to you in the studio.
So, Mike, you heard in Governor DeSantis' answer him criticizing Charlie Crist for trying to raise money. Well, what else do we know about that?
Okay, well, it's not surprising that that was one of the attacking points for Governor DeSantis. He has been able to raise a lot more money than Congressman Crist. In fact, it's 11 times more, but the congressman says that he is bringing in the big guns at the beginning of November to try to raise some money. President Biden reportedly coming down to South Florida and will attend a fundraiser with Charlie Crist, guys.
Yeah, Mike, here we are late in the campaign right now, but you're saying that there could still be more endorsements for the governor.
Well, Jim, I'm not sure exactly who he might have up his sleeve. Frankly, he doesn't need endorsements. He's already a household name, and the polls show that he is well ahead here. However, if you were watching and listening tonight, you did hear him say that he has the support of every major police union in the state. He is very proud of that. So that is an endorsement that he touched on tonight. We're live in Fort Pierce. I'm Mike Magnoli, CBS 12 News.
All right, our Mike Magnoli did a great job tonight. All of this, Liz, tonight's debate questions came from our viewers. And one of the top issues, no surprise, the economy.
Yes, that's right. The cost of daily life in Florida steadily on the rise. Both men criticized the other's performance and policies, and you wanted to know what either will do to make things better. what are your plans to reduce the effects of inflation on Floridians if the federal government cannot come up with a viable solution?
Here's what we're going to do. One, we have the 5th lowest gas prices in the country right now because we did do a gas tax holiday. We're proud of that. What we're going to do for Floridians who commute, we're going to reduce tolls by 50% statewide for all commuters in the state of Florida. We are going to make all baby items, diapers, cribs, wipes, you name it, tax-free permanently in the state of Florida so you can raise kids and get by.
The governor promising to also help the family pet because of how strong Florida's economy has become under his leadership.
And we're also going to say that pet food is going to be tax-free in the state of Florida. So this is going to be the largest tax relief plan in the history of the state of Florida. You're able to do that when you have a strong economy and the largest budget surplus in history, which we have right now.
Christ, the former governor, did not offer a plan, but attacked DeSantis.
What we need to do on the economy is make sure that we're focused on Florida. You know, he keeps talking about the Biden administration this, the Biden administration that. This is the DeSantis administration. And under the DeSantis administration, the middle class is getting crunched in Florida. You can't get an apartment. You can't afford a house. You can't pay your property insurance because he's taken his eye off the ball over and over and over.
Thank you, Congressman. DeSantis firing back, linking Christ and the economy to the policies of President Biden.
Well, we know that these are the effects of the Biden-Crist policies, the worst inflation in 40 years, and Charlie Crist votes with Biden 100% of the time, and he says that Biden is the best president he's ever seen. So he's locked together with these policies that have hurt so many people throughout our state and our country.
While Crist says he'll fix Florida's economic problems caused by DeSantis.
I would make sure that we're doing everything we can to be sure that housing is affordable again. And along with that goes so many other things, the price of gas, the price of utilities. These things are through the roof. We have inflation in Florida that's unique to any other state. And the problem is our inflation's too high under his leadership.
Both candidates called the Florida economy unique and diverse. DeSantis citing businesses moving to the state as a sign his administration is on the right track. Crist critical of the governor for taking on Walt Disney World and cruise companies for disagreeing with his policies.
While across the street from the Sunrise Theater, Treasure Coast voters were sharing their opinions about tonight's debate. CBS 12's Lily Ortiz continues our team coverage tonight. She joins us live in Fort Pierce with more on the impression that the candidates made on the voters. Lily?
Yeah, Jim, we are standing right outside 2nd Street Bistro here in downtown Fort Pierce, where Republicans gathered to watch the debate. Just a few blocks away from where Charlie Crist supporters spoke to us moments after the debate was over to share their main takeaway. Very different opinions here, but many of them agreed on this. They say it's going to be very interesting to see how the debate translates into votes. All eyes glued to TV screens for both Governor Ron DeSantis and challenger Charlie Crist supporters tonight, as people on the Treasure Coast keep a close eye on the highly anticipated debate. The energy was on full blast inside 2nd Street Bistro, where Republicans, matching in red shirts and wearing DeSantis 2022 caps, pay close attention to every word, and many had a lot to say after.
Well, I felt as though the topic of COVID and Governor DeSantis following the science and opening our state so that people didn't lose jobs like they did in so many other states. And Congressman Crist just kept bashing him for that.
All of them were good because, you know, any topic is perfect, you know, to the border, high inflation, all of that is relevant to all of us. We're all suffering from that.
The one thing I wanted to hear was an answer from Crist as to the mutilation of young children for gender alteration, and he never answered that question.
Others gathered outside, highlighting the governor's record on education and lifting lockdown restrictions during the pandemic.
I think that's the only thing that the Democrats have positive for them is that a woman should have a right to choose.
Bo Slay was inside the Sunrise Theater.
It was frustrating to be in there because we had the heckle group to the right that was screaming the whole time, so we couldn't even really hear the questions as they were being said.
And less than a mile away, this crowd for Charlie Crist, a sea of pink shirts holding "For Choice for Charlie" signs.
Charlie Crist is being honest. He's telling the truth. He's talking in the world of facts. And Ron DeSantis is a chronic liar. Maybe he doesn't even know when he's lying. He lies so much.
Dozens echoing to what Chris said during closing comments and hope he can bring the state back together and make Florida more affordable again.
I think he was very composed. I think he did a great job. And I agree with Mandy. He used facts. The questions were their talking points. We didn't hear about the environment. We didn't hear about what's going on in our schools.
In Fort Pierce, Luli Ortiz, CBS 12 News.
The most recent poll from Florida Atlantic University shows Governor DeSantis with a comfortable lead over Charlie Crist. Right now, 51% of surveyed voters say they plan to vote for the governor. That's compared to 40% who support Crist. Those numbers are based on a survey of 719 Floridians with a margin of error about 3.6 percentage points. It's important to note the survey was conducted the week before the hurricane hit. The new results are mostly in line with what pollsters found before the storm, but a majority of respondents did say they approved of how the governor responded to Hurricane Ian.
Well, as you can imagine, a lot of reaction pouring in from the gubernatorial debate. A lot of people talking on social media, and here's what they're saying. This is from Rick. He says, quote, "Charlie, this was objectively the most decisive debate win that I have ever witnessed. You may have single-handedly ended Governor Ron DeSantis' political career." And Romano, he says hundreds of thousands, Charlie Crist made Ron DeSantis sweat on that debate stage. And over here we've got, this is from Jason. He writes, "Charlie Crist just changed the game for Ron DeSantis. Ron is weak, and it was made clear tonight. Can we get Ron DeSantis trending?" Also tonight, another Twitter user writing, quote, "DeSantis kept the state open and running. He's helped our local businesses and kept our children safe as well." He says, "I can assure you that hundreds of thousands of people like me moved to this free state. Some reasons DeSantis' policies. He won last time. RD wins going away." By the way, continue the discussion by heading to your favorite social media platform. All you need to do is make sure you use the hashtag FLGovDebate.
The streets were packed in Fort Pierce tonight outside of the Sunrise Theater. Supporters for the candidates were seen waving flags and chanting. There were hundreds out there to show their support. Some crowds even got a little rowdy.
We love you, Ron! America's governor!
Nonviolence is murder!
Supporters for the candidates stood on separate sides of the street. We know law enforcement had to move some protesters at some point in the night. There was about a parade of about 150 supporters led by Crist's running mate, Carla Hernandez. Some of Crist's supporters were also seen wearing Choice for Crist shirts in reference to abortion rights. 5 people in the audience had to be escorted out of the theater by security.
Well, in our studios tonight, Tom McNicholas, a political strategist who works with both parties, along with Ryan Nicole, who is an editor and lead reporter with FloridaPolitics.com. They watched the debate with us and both believe Crist won some points, but failed to deliver that so-called knockout punch to the governor.
Crist didn't have a bad night. I wouldn't say he had a bad night. I just don't think he hit a knockout punch, and I don't think his wins were on the top issues that people care about.
All right, Tom, I see you nodding your head. You agree?
It was absolutely. It was a desperation debate for Charlie Crist, and I don't think he pierced it tonight. He tried to hit blows that just didn't land, and I think Governor DeSantis did what he needed to do tonight. He's got a large lead. I think the Crist campaign knows that. The DeSantis campaign certainly knows it. Most national polls are showing the same thing, and I honestly think Charlie Crist needed to make some desperate comments tonight, which he tried to, but they just didn't land.
One of the moments that has people really talking is when Crist had asked if the governor, who many see as a political contender for president, whether or not the governor would serve his full 4-year term as governor or step away early to run for president. Here's Ryan Nicole.
In terms of a moment, I mean, going back to that question about 2024, I think it was strategic on DeSantis' part. He didn't want to say one way or the other, and then if he decides to run, have it come and bite him, a sound bite saying he's never going to do it. But he did hesitate, and Crist kept going back to it, and I think there's a certain slice of viewers who may knock that against DeSantis.
Of course, this debate televised. It's a visual medium. So who gave the best performance? Take a listen.
Crist, seasoned professional. He's been here before. Nothing surprising from him. But I think DeSantis carried himself a lot better than maybe some people thought.
Tom, what do you think? Did we have a winner on the performance side of it?
Charlie Crist is smooth on performance, but I would say Ron DeSantis, the governor, did exactly what he needed to do tonight. He didn't make any unforced errors. He didn't get emotional. He didn't show any emotion at all, inappropriate emotion that he was getting frustrated. You look for those tells that we've seen over the last 4 years, and they weren't there tonight. He was pretty smooth. He stayed on point. It felt a little awkward for him when Governor Crist was pushing him on the 4-year commitment to stay as governor, but I think he was staying on message discipline. So I would have to say tonight, if I were to pick, I would say Governor DeSantis was more improved and did what he needed to do more so than Governor Crist.
All right, so great commentary from both of those gentlemen. You can watch our entire post-debate recap with Tom and Ryan by heading to our website at CBS12.com.
As Floridians digest what they heard in tonight's debate, early voting is already underway. Historically, Palm Beach County has leaned blue, but now we're seeing more voters register with no party affiliation. According to the Palm Beach County election website, over 1 million people are registered to vote in Palm Beach County. Nearly 400,000 are registered Democrat, 291,000 Republican, and more than 314,000 voters have no party affiliation. However, a professor at FAU tells CBS 12 News that doesn't necessarily mean votes are up for grabs.
Just because somebody indicates that they're NPA doesn't make them a nonpartisan voter. In fact, a lot of NPA voters are very consistent partisan voters. Either they vote more often for the Democratic Party or more often for the Republican Party.
According to the Palm Beach County election website, nearly 120,000 people have already cast their ballots.
Well, not just Palm Beach County, but in-person voting also started in St. Lucie, Indian River counties. Voters in Martin County, they can begin casting their ballots starting on Wednesday, and early voting in Okeechobee County, it begins next Saturday, the 29th. And with 15 days until Election Day, early voting turnout breaking new records. This includes people voting both in person and by mail. Florida has, in fact, the highest number of early ballot returns cast so far, with close to 1 million, according to data from Edison Research. That's more than 7.5 million people have already casted ballots across 39 states, smashing early voting records set in the presidential election of 2020. Well, that's not the only record Florida is breaking. A campaign cash contributed to the gubernatorial race makes it one of the most expensive in the nation. Our chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman, joining us now with more on just how much Washington is watching what takes place here.
Well, these days it seems like Florida is always part of the calculation here in Washington, Jim. By the way, your governor's race, it is ranked the second most expensive one underway. A lot of that money comes from outside groups, and many of those based here in D.C. Sure, midterms to many mean a fight over which party will control Congress, but as of late, state races are stealing much of that spotlight, and overwhelmingly because of governors' impact on the ways of Washington, whether it's orchestrating individual policies on abortion, gun control, or especially these days election security. Governors and therefore states are choosing their own paths. Take immigration and Governor DeSantis' decision to fly migrants to Martha's Vineyard. The move's getting attention, and former President Obama throwing his weight now behind Charlie Crist.
This is, I think, the most important off-year election that we've had since Roosevelt's time.
And the proof is in the payments. According to one watchdog group, the money raised for state elections nationwide this cycle, an eye-popping $7 billion. As with federal races, money flowing into state elections has skyrocketed in recent years, they write, and 2022 ups the ante again. And Florida outshining others, in this case because it's a potential launching pad. Its current and former residents of the governor's mansion are considered contenders for another house. The progressive group American Bridge listed 21 potential Republican candidates it's following for the 2024 presidential election and names both Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott. Also on that list, Senator Marco Rubio, and maybe its most known resident these days, Donald Trump. Florida again in its own way standing out to those here on the Hill. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Well, a brand new poll shows Senator Marco Rubio leading his Democratic challenger in a re-election bid. According to a survey from Florida Atlantic University, 48% of voters plan to vote for Rubio, while 42% plan to support Val Demings, his opponent. Another 7% remain undecided. All of this comes as the Republican senator takes to Twitter. He revealed one of his campaign workers was attacked over the weekend while canvassing in a neighborhood in Hialeah. Senator Rubio had tweeted these pictures showing the worker with a black eye and bloody face. He claims the employee had suffered internal bleeding, a broken jaw, and says that he will need facial reconstructive surgery.
Still to come, troubling test scores. The nation's report card revealing just how much the pandemic impacted student learning, how Florida's results compare to the rest of the country.
And looking at mostly clear skies out there, a nice little breeze from the northeast, and those temperatures comfortable in the mid-70s. Looks like we have a nice setup for tomorrow. More sunshine, less chances for rain. A look at that in your weekend outlook coming up in my forecast.